Hi, this is Debbie with Cheyenne Wyoming Urban Gardener, back at you again with another video. And this is just going to be an update of what's going on July 10th of the garden. We have had temperatures in the last 2 days of 88 degrees and then 95 degrees yesterday. And today it's supposed to be 96 degrees, so very, very hot. And I'll show you what all is going on with the garden and what it thinks about all of this heat here in just a moment. It's already, this morning is already up to probably in the 80s. We woke up to it being warm already. I don't think it really cooled off a whole lot last night, but enough to make the garden perk back up. So we'll show you what happened so far. Anyway, I wanted to show you inside of some of the plants that we normally don't really show. I've only done a couple of videos on inside plants and how that is going, and we had received a whole bunch of plants at the plant swap back in April at our Cheyenne Botanic Gardens, and I just wanted to show you that those plants are doing very well. We got some spider plants and some different types of vining plants, and then of course a couple of them we already had. I've got an amaryllis right here that I cut back not very long ago, and it should start coming out again soon, because basically what you do is you cut it back and then withhold water on the amaryllis for a little bit, and then you start watering again after about a week, and it should send up a stalk to bloom. So I'll show you what the other amaryllis, I've got 2 of them, what it did after I did that, and this one was a couple of days after that, so it's going to be a little bit slower, but it will pick up and start growing again. And my daughter picked up a clearance succulent pot, which hasn't been doing very well. I had a lot of the string of pearls in it and a couple other things, but it was already so far gone by the time we picked it up that it may not bounce back. There's a couple of the plants in there that are doing okay, but otherwise the string of pearls all died off, and we've had real trouble trying to keep those alive. We've tried everything. We've done exactly what they've told us to do, which is to not water them very often. We've done that, and then they would look like that they were just going to die off, so then we would water them a little bit and they'd perk back up and then slowly die off some more. So it's just very weird. We don't have any luck with the string of pearls, and everybody said that they're a very delicate plant. There is all kinds of plants in here that we had. One of the girls from the group where we met from the plant swap that came by a few days ago and told me what all of these are. And we've picked up a couple of cactuses since then as well at a couple of the garden centers, but anyway, this is some sort of variegated plants, and it's looking beautiful. It's actually starting to get some more growth on it. We have another spider plant over here, and I'm not even sure what this one is called. I know what I don't really like to say it, but what it has been called that I have heard has been traveling Jew. But of course it does have a scientific name. But this one is doing very well. It's starting to pick up and grow, and soon it should fill out the pot and start draping down, and then we will actually transplant it into a hanging pot. And then we've got our fiddle leaf fig, which is kind of struggling because it had a couple of babies in here as well as the main fiddle leaf fig, so we probably need to get those transplanted out. I'm just going to have to do some more research on this one. I've never really had a fiddle leaf fig. I've had a couple of family members that had one, but we got this one on clearance, so it had a couple of damaged leaves on it, and it's kind of bare on one side, but the rest of it is growing, so we will try to keep it going. And then my daughter is really into the ivies, and she got our ivy hung up. We have some hooks up here where a screen porch or a porch swing would go, sorry. So she's got it, and it has just grown immensely, and she's starting to like wrap the long parts all around each other and then just hang them off of everything. So it's just going like crazy, and she's got a couple of clippings off of it that she's propagating right now. And then we have 2 more clearance plants that I picked up, and I think these are yuccas of some variety, and they're doing very well. This one in particular was very droopy when I picked it up, and now it has came back out and has got a lot of new growth in it. And so does this one as well. And then I do know this one. This one is a Swiss cheese philodendron, I believe. But anyway, it's doing great. It's actually picked up and growing. The leaf was like this when we got it. So, and but it is putting out a whole lot of new growth. And then of course I've got my 2 California aloes over here. I had just taken, there was a pup or a baby that had came up off of this one in the pot, and I took it out and put it in a different pot. And then one of the girls that picked up some of the started sucker tomatoes, she picked up the aloe as well. So she has that one, but it will be huge. Both of these are huge, huge plants. And let me show you some more. And here's another one of the clearance trees that we got. I'm going to call it a tree, but it definitely has taken off in growth. You probably heard our dog barking, and he's thinking that I'm talking to a complete stranger, so he decides to bark. But anyway, it has put on a lot of new growth. In fact, it's growing 2 separate branches now, so I could probably cut one of them off and try to propagate it, but I'm not real sure, so I want to make sure that I check that out. You can see where it's branching off right there. It had 2 when it first came, and now it has 3. So, pretty cool stuff. So it must like here. And then my daughter has a different type of ivy plant. I think this one is called an angel plant, but it has started becoming more of an ivy, as you can see here. So, and she's got a different kind of angel plant in there besides this one. And then of course I have the Christmas cactus or holiday cactus or Easter cactus. I've heard a lot of different names for it. It's doing very well. It's starting to get some little buds on it, if you can see those right at the tip, where there might be some more blooms come up. And the dog thought yet again we had strangers in the house. So I need to get this one transplanted into a larger pot, but I just want to make sure that it's going to survive. And then of course she has all the orchids. She has an orchid green thumb, and it's starting to put out some new branches on it as well. Anyway, I had to pause again because my daughter came down to take her dog out. Anyway, here is the other amaryllis, and as you can see I had cut it off, and we've got a lot of debris in there that I need to clean out. But I did go ahead and get this one trimmed back, and as you can see we have some new growth on it already. So it's gonna potentially go ahead and bloom, or just maybe a leaf. We'll find out pretty soon. But that is going to be a very fast growth. In my experience with it, it's been only a couple of weeks at most before that sucker is like 3 feet tall and ready to bloom. So all of her orchids are doing amazing. She's gotten a lot of them on clearance and brought them back to health. She's got that green thumb for the orchids. And then we've got some other guys in here that I'm not really sure if I don't remember the names of, but they got on some new growth, and I did get those at the plant swap as well. And there is the ivy that my daughter is propagating right now to try to get it to root, and then she's going to start some more ivy plants. Here's 2 of the tomato suckers that I've transplanted, one yesterday and then one today, into larger pots so they can take off. And then of course we will transplant them into even larger pots when they go outside. And then get established there for about a week before we get them into the larger pots. So I'm going to continue growing with these as long as I can and see if they produce anything. And then this sedum, my daughter picked up a broken piece of sedum in a parking lot at Home Depot. It looks like it had probably fallen off of someone that had bought a potted plant with maybe some sedum in it. So we picked it up, brought it home, propagated it, it rooted. Anyway, you can see where I store all of my fertilizers and things is just on the bottom row of this shelf. And then we've got some of our different potting mixes here. My stepdaughter got this little plant, and I'm not really sure what it is. It looks a lot like thyme, but it does not smell like thyme. So if anyone knows what this plant is, it does not have a name on it, then please let me know. I'm not real sure what it is, and I'm not sure how to treat it. We've just been watering it, but I think it probably needs to get transplanted into something else because it definitely has filled out this pot, and it's actually putting a lot of new growth on. So let me know if you know what that is. And here again is the tomato plants that we are propagating here. These are the suckers that we will root and then get planted, just like we did these in the transplanted pots. And I just took that one out today and got that one transplanted, so I only have 2 left in here. One's a tomatillo, and the other one is a different tomato plant. I think it's an old German, but at this point I'm going to get kind of getting mixed up with which ones that I've pulled. I need to tag them or have some way of knowing the difference. I do try to keep the large tomatoes separated from the smaller varieties. So these are all yellow pear tomatoes or sun gold cherry tomatoes, but these are the larger ones, which are either Old German, Giant Ox Heart, Super Sauce, or San Marzano. So it's one of those. And the transplanted one that we put out into the garden is doing very well. I'll show you that one in just a moment. And then here we have some more of our potted plants that my daughter keeps in here, and a couple of the celery that we were still trying to work with. It has grown some, but it has not grown exponentially in size. So we'll probably just keep that in here. I'm not real sure if I will set them out, and we'll see what happens with those. But I'll set them out before too much longer, because otherwise they won't do anything, if they do anything at all. And then of course we've got a couple of more plants that we got at the plant swap, and some clay pots that I had picked up at I believe I got these at Home Depot on sale. Or no, actually those came from Menards on sale. So I got them for like $1.98 or something, and the little trays were like 60 something cents. And then we have another, I apologize to use this term because I don't know the other term right now, is another traveling Jew, and this one is more of a variegated kind with the striping, and it has a couple of babies on it, so that one's getting well established. So we're hoping to see that one get really big. And then we picked this pot up from the Goodwill, and I just thought it was really, really unique and pretty, and it actually was handmade. There's a name on the bottom, and it was like handmade in the 70s, so very nice little pot, and we're going to keep that one. It didn't even have any chips in it or anything. And then my daughter found a pear cactus, and I think this is actually a cutting off of a pear cactus that they have at this particular garden center, Bath Garden Center. And the one pear cactus that they have is enormous. It's probably like 10 feet across or something, and had cactus fruit all over it. So very, very healthy pear cactus. Looks like it's going to be pretty unique, and we'll see how that one goes. And you can see I've already started drying some of my herbs. I've got some dill here, some oregano, and I think this one is cilantro. Yes, cilantro. So we've got those 3 drying here. These are all ones that I actually needed to stock up on because I used quite a bit of them last season. And then of course we always give out dried herbs to others because we just have so many. And then here's our little pile of hibiscus flowers. Like I said, we are keeping the hibiscus flowers, drying those for hibiscus sugar and hibiscus tea and things like that. So you can see those. And then we've got some chamomile in here. And I think my daughter needs to probably harvest some more of the chamomile because there's quite a bit of blooms out there. And as you can see, we picked up a whole bunch of seeds on clearance. These are seeds that they're getting ready to get rid of. And we picked up a whole bunch of those. And I'm still planting quite a bit of stuff. Kohlrabi and things like that can still be planted. I did just plant some of the pickler cucumbers. We're still planting radishes because right now it's hot. So in a few weeks it will be cooling back down. That's the way Cheyenne, Wyoming's weather works. We will start probably seeing snow again by mid-September. So once the sun starts being less and less time per day, then it starts cooling off. So there's been a lot of distractions this morning while I'm trying to make a video. We've got planes going overhead, dogs barking, children talking to me, and just complete interruptions constantly. That's kind of what happens going on around here. So as you can see, our turnips are doing really well. We're now outside, and beets doing very well. They did not like the heat yesterday, and we have a couple of the dinosaur kale in here, and they're doing pretty well. They handled the heat okay, but of course they really don't like such heat, especially in the 90s like it was. As you can see, there was a little bit of stress on the larger beets, especially the leaves that already had some damage on them. And we're going to get in here and trim those out today just to see if they put on some healthier growth pretty soon. We've got some, I think they're going to be either ground cherries or volunteer tomatillos that keep coming up like crazy out here, and I'm going to leave them and see what happens to see which they are. And of course we have a lot of volunteer sunflowers that come out of the bird seed where we feed the birds just right out here. You can see there's a lot of greenery at the base of the seed area, and they keep coming up. I've pulled them and pulled them and pulled them, but there's a few of them I'm going to leave and let them go ahead and bloom. But anyway, we've got our gold beets in there, the colorful beets, and then the Jupiter beets. They're all doing really well. The gold beets came up pretty thick, so we'll need to get in here and thin some of these out. And the larger beets actually did very well. They're fairly spaced apart, even though it doesn't look like it because the tops are pretty big. But they seem to be doing really well. This is actually the colorful beets mix, so we don't really know if they're just going to be red or if they're going to be other colors, so we'll find out a little bit later on. Rutabagas are actually putting some pretty nice size on. And of course, we've got some newer ones that we planted, and we'll need to get in there and thin those because they just came up in bukus the second time that I planted to try to fill in. So we'll need to get in there and go ahead and thin some of those out. And like I said, there's another one of those, either a ground cherry or tomatillo that just volunteered and randomly came up and right there as well. And they're kind of coming up all over the place, and they may be a wild ground cherry, I'm not sure. But anyway, pumpkin's doing amazing. They've got their runners on them now. You can see they're kind of poking out right there, and definitely getting a lot bigger in size. The leaves are pretty massive at this point, but of course I had way bigger leaves last season because they were just such large plants, and we had a little bit of an earlier season. But they're all doing really well, and of course the leaves will get massive pretty soon. All of our flowers that we have transplanted around, they're doing great. I moved the geraniums out a little bit more into the light because they were getting shaded out a lot by the potatoes. The potatoes yesterday, these are the Yukon Golds, did not like the heat at all. They had completely laid over, wilted quite a bit, and by the time that I could get some water in there just to try to perk them back up later in the evening, I did it as early as I possibly could. They did perk back up, but it took a few hours for them to get perked back up. But they're now looking fantastic as they were, and they're just so beautiful. These took so long to get a good hold, but then once they did, they really just took off, and you can see all the blooms that are going on with them. They're just so pretty. Lots of really nice blooms on every single one of them. Some of them still haven't bloomed yet, but they will. Just so pretty. And when they first started to bloom, they actually were purple, and then they turned white. So pretty. Yukon Golds. And then we got in here and planted some more carrot seed in here, which has not came up as yet, but we did have a lot of the Shin Carota carrots come up. They're all along in this area, so you can see that they came up very thickly. We did get in here and thin a lot of the carrots yesterday, or actually day before when I was planting them, so you can see we thinned out quite a bit. We've got some space in there for them to get some size on them. And then of course we got the daikon radish in the back, and like I said, I just watered, so they're kind of laying over right now because I watered them. But we don't have a whole lot of them. It's just an experiment to see how well they do here, what they do here. So we'll see how big they get. And then of course we planted along through here. You can see where I disturbed the soil. We planted some parsnips through here. So this is Harris model parsnips all along in this area because we didn't have any carrots planted here. And then of course we had carrots planted here that didn't come up very well. So we filled in with the Shin Carota carrots, and they're all coming up and actually getting a little bit bigger now. So we've got a lot of Shin Carota carrots, and then of course we've got some Danvers, and then we had a rainbow mix of carrots, which only a couple of those came up. So carrots are a difficult one sometimes to get started. It all is about timing and how much you keep them damp, and I kept them damp and everything like you're supposed to, but they just didn't come up very well, so we went ahead and filled in. The lettuce amazingly it laid over completely yesterday with the heat, but it did very well. It pulled through. I'm not sure if it's going to get bitter because of the heat, but we did have some romaine lettuce in here. I mixed in some of the Paris Island cause, which is more of a romaine lettuce. I mixed in a couple of those through here, or several of those. So those are actually doing very, very well. So when we go in and we harvest the rest of this lettuce, the rest of the gourmet blend, then that's going to leave just those romaine lettuce left. And I may transplant them around when it cools off a little bit, just to have them in a nice row. But we also have around through here some of the red marvel lettuce that's planted all around in a circle around this bed. And then through here we have some more gourmet blend, which is, some of it came up a little bit sooner than the others, but the others are coming up as well. And then we had planted some cilantro right here beside of the step, and that all came up like crazy. You can see all the little guys through here. And I just did that just because there's a little space there, and the soil is actually really good right there. And it seemed like the perfect spot to just have a little patch of cilantro there. Our sweet potato does not seem to be sending up slips, but it is rooted in there. So I'm not sure how long it takes for slips to start coming up. But the potato is definitely rooted in there, so I'm assuming that it should have some slips soon, so we'll find out. Like I said, this is the beet area through here, and the pumpkins. Pumpkins doing wonderfully. We've got our Boston marrows back there from Suburban Homestead, Wyoming / Arizona, and they're both doing amazing as well. They've got runners on them, but the pumpkins have already surpassed them. So they started out being a lot bigger, and then the pumpkins came up, and they were not as big as seedlings as what the Boston marrows were, but the pumpkins very quickly caught up and then surpassed the Boston marrow. So these guys have been here for 7 years. This is the same seed I've been planting for 7 years. So they're acclimated to the weather a little bit better here, and it's probably a little bit warmer here than it is in Gillette. So the Boston marrows they're here, they're beautiful, they'll come on, but they're kind of adjusting, I think, to the difference in temperature. But everything looking beautiful through here. Of course, our pots that we made, the hanging pots, are doing beautifully as well. I have been finding little petunias that keep coming up everywhere, so I just kind of stick them wherever I can in the hanging pots, and then they come on and start blooming like these other ones. I've got all kinds of colors of petunias, and of course last season we had a lot of the black velvet petunias, the very black petunias, and I found, and I think that's probably this one right here, and then I found a lot of those, and I've just basically stuck them in everywhere, and I've given them away to people. So we'll have some black velvet petunias as well. The coleus is doing absolutely amazing in here. Of course, we've got the two colors. It's kind of hard to see the other one unless I flip it around. The rusty orange color, and then we have the fuchsia like red color with the purple trim. So I actually want to get in here and thin some of these out because there's a whole lot of plants in here. And this was just a hanging pot that I'd found at Menards. They had really abused it, not watered it, and it was very, very wilted. I didn't think it would come back, and they just gave it to me because it was the last one that was left. And it is blooming like crazy, and I absolutely loves it here, but I want to go in and separate them out and then maybe give some of them out to people because there's probably 100 plants in there in that one pot. You can just see they're everywhere in there. And of course the iron pots with the flowers is doing absolutely amazing as well. And then we've got the Russian kale in here that we had just planted. It did not enjoy the temperature yesterday, but it did perk back up, and they're pretty new, so they'll establish pretty well. They'll get adjusted to everything. Rhubarb is just massive still, and I gave away quite a bit of it to the next door neighbor. Cut out some fronds in here and get her leaves and gave them to her with the stalks, and there's still a lot of it. And I noticed that the one that did not rebound after I had cut the seed pods back off of it, it has started rebounding now. So it has got some more leaves on it, and one of the leaves is dying off. Swiss chard is continuing to grow like crazy. I'm going to get in here and mound it up a little bit around each one because it just seemed to be laying over a lot. So I think they need to be mounded up a little bit. Unfortunately, we lost the bok choy to the heat. It pretty much all bolted yesterday. So every bit of it has got some blooms on it. You can see blooms right there. And that just happened basically in one day. So we'll have to get in here and plant some more. I picked up a pack of pak choy, which was a smaller variety. These were actually bok choy. They were supposed to be bigger. And this is the first season that I tried anything over here because we had just broke ground on it back at the beginning of spring. So we probably need to adjust a little bit in here. But I did plant some butternut squash in here, and they are doing very well. And they didn't do as well last year. So they are up. They're not any great size yet, but I planted them a lot later than any of the other squash, so they're going to take a little while to come on. And then, of course, we've got the area over in here where we planted the first round of the Guido Cossaman squash. And that guy is right here. And it's not doing the best in the world. It took a long time to come up. Then when it did, it seemed like it had struggled to get out of the ground. And this is on the north side. So I probably will not plant those again over in this area. And in fact, when she gave me some replacement seeds, I actually planted them on the south side, and I'll show you how much better they are doing. And of course, we've got a lot of our lilies are blooming right now. We've got some red ones, and we have some Asiatic variety, which are a white and pink and purple, which have not bloomed as yet, but they're wanting to. And then we've got some white ones and some yellow ones and all kinds of colors in here. But the red ones seem to bloom a lot faster than the others. But you can tell that they're getting ready to bloom. And we do have an orange purple one that's pretty unique. And then we have some black lilies as well. And those are getting ready to bloom too. And of course we planted some sunflowers in here to kind of take the place of some of the seeds that didn't come up, like the French pie pumpkin. But we did have one of the French pie pumpkins come up right there, and it seems to be doing okay. And then there's more sunflowers there, and then we've got some acorn squash in here, and those are doing pretty well. And then she had given me, and that's Suburban Homesteaders, Wyoming / Arizona, she had given me some Big Macs pumpkins as well, and they are starting to put some runners on. Again, this is on the north side, so everything's a little bit slower, but they're beginning to put their runners on. So I think that they're going to try to do something. So we'll hope that they are able to do something, because we have a lot later season this season. And of course, we've gotten a lot of strawberries off of this converted kiddie pool on the north side. The strawberries here seem to be doing better than the ones on the south side, but the south side ones are beginning to pick up now. So I'll show you those here in a moment. But these strawberries are doing very, very well. They are putting runners on, so I'm letting those go ahead and stay in there so they can catch and root in this area. And then we planted some dill there in the back, and that is all up. And then I did go ahead and throw a cucumber seed in here, which is doing very well down in there as well. And there's some more of the black lilies. Those did not get as tall, and they're probably getting shaded out by the strawberries here, so we'll probably move those, that clump, this season to some other area so they can bloom next season. And again, I threw some more cucumber seeds in here, and those are doing really well. And then our rhododendron just keeps rebounding like crazy in here, so I'm really hoping it picks up, because we have tried to get rhododendrons started in Cheyenne, Wyoming, and the soil here is alkaline instead of being like it is back in East Tennessee, where we have a lot of rhododendrons that grow in everyone's yards. And a lot of them, to be honest, are wild rhododendrons that people have stolen off of the top of Roan Mountain. Roan Mountain is one of the is the area where I'm from originally, and Roan Mountain is the natural rhododendron gardens in the East Coast, and it's the third highest peak. So a lot of people will go up there and still rhododendrons from that particular mountain and then plant them in their own yards. So that's how they end up with so many rhododendrons, and I think it's kind of spread from there into all of the nurseries and everything, because a lot of the nurseries ended up getting rhododendrons, most likely stolen, and then they've propagated them from there. So anyway, that rhododendron is a Catawba rhododendron, which comes from that area, and that is where a lot of the natural rhododendron gardens are. So I'm not sure if, and this one came from a nursery, so I'm not sure if that's where it ended up coming from or is from that original stock, but we'll see. It's a very beautiful pink bloom when it does bloom. It bloomed the first season we had it here. But anyway, we will go into a part 2 because we do about 30 minutes on this particular phone and before it ends up going into a separate video. So we will see you in the part 2.